Hey guys, welcome back to Football United TV. This is the F.I.T.A show, Football in the Americas, the show where we talk about football in the Americas. As the title says, right after the intro, we'll get to talking about the Brasileirão. Right. All right. And we're back. We're back. Big show tonight. Big show tonight. Arguably the one that we could spend the longest on. Like we're gonna be talking about the Brasileirão. Lots of big players, lots of big names. And I have two big names here to talk about that with me. Our two great friends, our official sponsors at Golasso Kits, my two good friends, Mateo and John. Mateo, how are you, my man?
Hello, Charlie. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you're listening from. I'm good. I'm good. Palmeiras won, so nothing to complain.
Yeah, happy weekend for us in general. Johnny, my man, how are you?
Doing great. Super happy to be here. Out of all the episodes we have scheduled, this is definitely my favorite topic. So,
Same.
very excited.
Yes, yes. It's a big show, so we're gonna get right to it, right? By the way, like this is something I've been waiting to do. Like by the end of the show, we're gonna do some scouting for the Premier League, right? For anyone watching here, we're gonna talk about some rising stars in Brazil that we're gonna try to place them in the Premier League. This is not about rumors, by the way. This is just us like playing a guessing game and playing FIFA in our heads. But the first topic's this one. Botafogo making the league look easy. They're leading the league by a lot, which makes most of us realize that they're in the first division because this is very unexpected. Let me show you this. Like I'm gonna show you the table right away so that you can know what we're talking about because they really are like steamrolling the competition right now. It's not even close. Um, so first of all, like open table, like in general, Johnny, like what are your first thoughts on this Botafogo craziness here? Like, do you think this is the biggest surprise? Like, if they end up winning and it's looking that way, is it the biggest surprise in the league era?
You asked me that off air, and it got me thinking. And I think it kind of depends what your expectation was before the season started. But just to give people context, I'm actually going to go with yes. I think this would be the biggest surprise for me. And just to give the listeners context, a couple of years ago, Brazil passed a law that encouraged clubs to be purchased by owners for the first time in the history of the sport in the country. Um, Something that it's a little complicated, but something that has to do with tax incentives and renegotiation of debt. Botafogo was one of the clubs that was doing the worst in terms of debt to revenue that they were making. That ratio was very, very bad. They got purchased by an American named John Texter, who was already part owner of Crystal Palace, bought Botafogo after Botafogo actually also bought Lyon in France. And his project with Botafogo was always very gradual. He wasn't one of those owners that bought the club and right in that first transfer window got a bunch of stars, made big promises. His first moves were structural in the club, improving the training grounds, improving the stadium, improving fan experience. After that, he bought a very serious coach, Castro, that today is coaching Al Nassr with Cristiano Ronaldo, a coach that looks at the youth academy a lot, that believes in a long-term process of scouting and all that. So Botafogo was purchased was in the second division, won the second division, had just been promoted. In their first year back, they finished mid-table, which was seen as a decent result. And this was, as their second year in the first division, the objective was to get a spot in the Libertadores, which in Brazil is top 8. So, and the only big name player that was acquired by the club, and I use the term big player kind of loosely here, was Chiquinho Suárez, which was a center forward that played for Porto. Of an important name, but it's not Luis Suarez, it's not Marcelo, it's not James Rodriguez, right?
Yeah.
And they worked. The project worked unbelievably. You see all these players that, if you look at their careers, have kind of hopped around inexpressive clubs, mid-table clubs in Brazil, outside of Brazil, players that you probably never heard of. And all of a sudden, the collective has been working beautifully. And we're seeing the results here. In 20 games, 15 wins, 3 ties, and only 2 losses. Absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy. If you were to rank just the roster, it might not be in the top 10, just in terms of name. So everyone's absolutely shocked, and at the same time enjoying this moment, because it's been a while since we've had such a big surprise in Brazil, especially since the tournament has been played in European style, where everyone plays everyone, is only points. Brazil, up until 2003, had a knockout stage after the first round that was like this. So, yeah, I think that gives a good view of the context around Botafogo, why it's a surprise, and the beautiful work that they've been doing. If you get a chance, watch their games. They're actually a lot of fun. Very offensive team, always attacking. It's fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, not if you're rooting against them, which is usually what I'm doing. So I don't usually have fun. But yeah, it's good football, man. And they lost their manager not too long ago, and things still, like, they're still working out. Chiquinho Soares got injured. They got Diego Costa. Like, things are exciting. So Mateo, I wanna ask if you agree, if you think this would be the biggest upset in the league era, which is exactly like since 2003, like Johnny just said. And given that your team, you're a Palmeiras fan, and it's like no one's likely to reach Botafogo right now, but if anyone was to reach them, Palmeiras right now would be favored to try to do that. How little, like how small of a chance do you feel like that is right now? So those are my
I
two
think
questions. Like you,
there's close to 0 chance of anyone taking this.
yeah,
Not because of I don't doubt other teams that can raise their performance and make more points, but I just doubt that Botafogo falls off so heavily. It's the best. It was the best first part of the tournament in history since we've moved to a league table. Was the best attack this year. They have the top scorer, like John said. There was the best defense as well. So I just can't see them falling off and not taking this. But I don't know if it's the biggest surprise ever. I think we've had a lot of teams that have come from second division that have gone to challenge for the league or win the league, like Corinthians in 2009, I believe, or
I was only
2010.
talking about champions, just in terms of like teams who have ended up winning, not like overall.
yeah. Biggest upset when it comes to the winner. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that there was a Fluminense team that wasn't really keen to win and won at the end. So there was a Corinthians team that started the year as the worst team of the state, and then they ended up having, a historic championship. So, yeah, and then the other thing that I wanted to bring from them is the amazing scouting that they've done. Like John has said, it's just so many players that you don't think much of, but then when you watch them play, it's spectacular. And I wanted to highlight a couple. I think Marlon Freitas, who we saw him here play when he was young here at the Strikers, day in, day out. You could see the talent there, but you could see that he was very raw. So it's amazing to see him. There are people clamoring for him to be called up to the national team.
I was going to mention that.
Which
That's
is crazy
to
for
me.
us to think of, right? Like we saw him here so close. And then there's F.I.T.A as well, former Manchester United player. He cried when he started with Botafogo, saying that like this was his dream. Someone that played for a national team, played Champions League, played for Manchester United. He was crying when he was there, so it meant a lot for him. It means a lot to a lot of these players. I'm loving to see the fan base be revived. I just wanted to bring to discussion that I think today it is the best SAF that we have in our system, but I don't think this specific model will be sustainable at all, and it's only being positively spoken about because they're in first. Because I think that it's very debatable in terms of project, in terms of sustainability, in terms of everything that's been done. I think that that's debatable, and I disagree that they play good football. I don't think they play good football, but they're winning. So nothing else to say about there. But the numbers don't lie. It's an unbelievable achievement that they've done.
Yeah. Oh, you mentioned too, like you spoke particularly about two Fluminense Academy players, right? And two very different situations. Like Rafael never played for Fluminense, was sold to Man United as a teen, along with his brother, his twin brother Fabio. You guys definitely remember him. And he was a Botafogo fan, so yeah, it meant a lot to him. He came back like on a down, right? Like we still figured he'd do well, but he wasn't tearing stuff up like in Europe anymore. Never actually quite did that. Like had like 2 or 3 good seasons at United. But Marlon Freitas, like he was kicked out of Fluminense, kicked out. Like he was not good enough back then. And now
he was one of those youth guys that they sent off either to the satellite teams that Fluminense has all over the world. It was Marlon, it was Stefano Pino as well that Fluminense had sent to like Slovenia or something like that, or Bulgaria, who played for the Strikers. And there was another one as well. There was another Fluminense. I can't remember who. Mateus Carvalho. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, that guy actually got some minutes as well. I remember him. But
he ended up in Monaco.
Yeah, I think at one point. But yeah, Marlon Freitas, he was never horrible, but he was always like that reserve, like that, that kind of slow DM that like you put in when you need to defend. That's it. He was never too good. And now like I see some people saying that he should have been called up, like maybe in the place of Joelinton, maybe in the place of André. Like which is crazy to me, but yeah, it just goes to show like how well they've been doing. I'll get to the rest of the league. It's just that there are some interesting comments here already that I want to get to. So I'll get back to the topic in 1 second. There's a poll because of the scouting we're going to be doing, right? That we're going to be trying to place players in Brazil and England. We decided to take 4 good young Brazilian players that are in England that haven't like established themselves quite yet. Not like Thiago Silva, Alisson, Ederson, like more up and coming. In Bruno Guimarães, Martinelli, Paquetá, and Antony. So we're asking you, like, who do you think is going to have the better career after all? And by the time he commented, there were 7 votes so far. Martinelli was at 43%, along with Paquetá, 14% for Bruno, and 0% for Antony, which is not too surprising if you're basing it only on the Premier League so far. But other than that, there's never seen a comment like this actually, and I'm gonna throw this straight to you because this is Mandarin for me, like no idea. All right, lads, you able to talk on the Riotianism style that seems to have come back into South American football? Tirando paredes, escaleras, e toca mi voy, etc. I'm a little lost here, but if you guys want to share some light there.
I think a lot of it is on the spotlight of our next topic, or on the Fernando Diniz topic that we'll touch upon later. But I think just to talk about it a little bit now, I think that that's always been there. There's always have been coaches and teams that have tried to play a specific way. But now that Fernando Diniz has been able to win trophies and also what seems like consistently now for a year and a half, have a team overperform, playing well, that's something that I think has been actually at least bringing that conversation back a little bit.
Yeah.
Thank you, man.
What happened in Brazil specifically, I don't know if I can talk for all of South America, but I can talk about this because it was my team. São Paulo won 3 Brazilian leagues back to back with a coach that was very defensive and very pragmatic. And that was sold to the fans as finally we have a coach that's quote unquote European style and organized as opposed to super offensive, go out and be creative. And that, I think, ruined Brazilian soccer for a bit because a lot of teams try to emulate that and try to play defensively, try to play very organized in detriment to the skill-based game that Brazil is famous for. But like Matteo said, it's always been there, and now it's coming back stronger than it has been in the past.
Awesome. There you go. Very technical answer. Just to finish up the comments here. Hello, Marlie. You look like a handsome musketeer tonight. Thank you very much. I like that. I doubt Anthony's even the best winger in his own house. That might be harsh. Very simply, it's that in Europe, we tend to occupy spaces and try and move the opposition. But from what I've seen from South American football in the last year, they tend to attack the spaces. Is you right in that assumption?
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
BX, one of my favorite followers, man. Thank you so much for being here once again. Big up. Like those Boca moves at the weekend arriving into space. Okay. Big up, cuz. Have a good show. I voted Martinelli in the poll, trying to get some shut-eye, but the misses keep... Okay. Not going to read the rest of that. Okay. Sorry. Anthony's just that way. Okay, let's get back on topic. Freaking cousin. Okay. Let me just get to the rest of the table very quickly. In addition to Botafogo, I'm going to try to summarize what's happening here. Rio de Janeiro as a state's doing really well, with 3 of the 4 big teams being in the top 4 in Botafogo, Flamengo, and Fluminense in 1st, 3rd, and 4th. The other big one, we're going to be talking about them a little bit, is Vasco. They're in 18th. 4 teams are relegated in Brazil, so they're in one of those spots right now. But things were looking a lot worse not too long ago. So I think they could be okay. Grêmio is another huge club with Suárez right now being their leader, like their best player. They're in 5th. Another Red Bull Bragantino in 6th. Then you have some surprises in Atlético Mineiro not doing too well. São Paulo trying to get back to their olden days in 10th. Internacional, who's doing well in the Libertadores, but not too well in the Brasileirão in 14th. Corinthians being somewhat of a disappointment, but they started off very poorly. They're not doing too bad as of recently, with the exception of the Copa do Brasil loss to São Paulo. But that was like one of the best games I've seen from São Paulo in a long time. So I'm not going to put too much in Corinthians there. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about in Botafogo? Do you feel like Chiquinho Suárez's absence could like be significant enough for them to worry, or do you feel like Diego Costa is gonna like fulfill those shoes?
Oh, go ahead.
Can you guys hear me? Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I can hear you.
So when I first saw the injury, I thought it was going to be a big problem, but I think their first game after that was against Inter at home, and they just destroyed Inter like 3-1, but it could have been 5-1, 6-1. Yeah. And Diego Costa hadn't even been announced at that point. They were just playing with Gustavo Sauer up top, who already got loaned out. I think he went to Greece, if I'm not mistaken. No, Turkey. Sorry, he went to Turkey. So it looks like one thing that Botafogo has been able to do well, and has a lot to do with the fact that they had the same coach for a year and a half, and once he left, they got a coach that's very like-minded, is that the team has a system, and you can take a piece, put in another piece, but the system still works. Like the gears are still turning, independent of the pieces, and that's exactly what you want from a team that doesn't have any individual talent, or not any incredible individual talent, as opposed to a lot of its rivals. So I was busy. I was busy. I was worried at first, but now I'm more confident that they can keep up this rhythm. And it all kind of depends. They're also in the Copa Sudamericana, right? The Europa League of South America, and I'm also curious to see how much attention they're gonna give to that. But if they make it to the final, that's just 5 extra games in their schedule, so it's not terrible. They're already out of the Brazilian Cup, so I expect them to maintain this rhythm, at least in the short term.
Yeah. I don't think they're going to be resting players in the Brasileirão for the Sul-Americana.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, that's one thing that's going to make a difference, because 2 teams chasing them. They're 11 and 15 points behind them. But Fluminense and Palmeiras, we rest players for the Libertadores. You know, like Fluminense does it every now and then, but Palmeiras always does. And that's something that Botafogo is not going to be doing. So, yeah, I think they're secure in there. All right, so out of the topics that we have ready for today, I feel like one that...
But at the end of the day, I just have to say this. I would not be completely shocked if Botafogo went out of nowhere 8 games winless and Palmeiras went 8 games undefeated. And then all of a sudden it's a 3-point race or something. I would not be shocked.
There was this comparison more towards the beginning of the season where people were comparing Palmeiras to Arsenal. No, sorry, Botafogo to Arsenal, right? A team that was like getting rid of humiliating teams left and right. Arsenal was actually like playing really pretty football, unlike Botafogo, who plays like more. It's not as pretty, but very dominant, winning most games as well, looking like it's going to take it away. But the main argument in Botafogo's defense was that like there's no Man City in Brazil, which is fair. But then again, there almost is. Like Palmeiras with Abel Ferreira has been like, you can compare it to Pep Guardiola and Man City. It's very comparable. When you're talking about South America, like that's the obvious comparison you're going to make.
Did you see the bench that Pep had this weekend?
It wasn't too good.
No, exactly. He made 0 changes, right? Yeah. There's a reason why he made 0 changes. Go look at his bench. It's very similar to the way Palmeiras constructed their roster, or Palmeiras constructed a roster like Manchester City. It's not a small roster. It's an inexperienced roster, which is very different.
Yeah.
And one more comment on before we close Botafogo is John spoke about how important the system is. And a player that I think plays a system really well, and when he fits a system, he's an amazing player, a very versatile player, is Cheche. Cheche was a crucial guy in Palmeiras midfield when they won the Brasileirão after 20 plus years. Crucial guy in the midfielder when Atlético Mineiro won the Brasileirão after 40 plus years. And now he's going to be a crucial guy in the midfield of Botafogo winning the Brasileirão after 20 odd years. So a very interesting player, and I think he'll cement himself as one of the historic players now in the points era, like we call it, right? Definitely a legend for several clubs.
But I think I did the math, by the way. 28 years. I think it was 95 last time they won the national league. And in that time period, I think they've only won like a couple of Cariocão.
I think they won the Copa Comembol.
Oh, okay, yeah, there it is. I
like in 96 or 97. But yeah, it was around the same era, the same team.
Yeah, but they haven't won the Copa do Brasil, nothing like that. Botafogo they've had like 1 or 2 icons, like Jefferson, El Loco Abreu, but like 1 or 2 seasons where they're kind of competitive, kind of look like they're going to go into the Libertadores or something. But yeah, it's a big upset for sure. On the other end of the
Botafogo's Copa Comembol was in 93. So it was
before. Right. So, okay. The other end of the table, another team with like a somewhat new ownership as well, Vasco da Gama, much bigger than Botafogo, if I'm being honest. Like they're regarded as the second biggest team in Rio. Huge fan base, very successful in the early 2000s, late 90s. Now they're struggling, have been struggling for a long time. They just got in Dimitri Payet, which weird, right? Like French player in the Brasileirão. It's not every day that you see that. Do you guys feel like he's going to be making like as much of a difference as some of the main stars have been doing coming back, like the likes of Marcelo's not even a good example because he's not fit most of the time, but Suárez, Hulk, Lucas seems to be doing. How hopeful are you with Payet at Vasco?
I think he's immediately a top 3 player in the league.
Wow.
Without even stepping foot on the pitch.
Wow.
And I think that, to answer the question we have on screen, I think there's no chance Vasco goes down. There's no chance, 0 chance.
Yes.
I just think that there's you can see the team improving, and you can see not only players coming in, but a team that's coached by an actual legit good coach, and you can see things getting better. And I think that they'll survive at the end of the season. It's going to be a long and very hard road, and they still have a lot of work to do. It seems like it's little points, but it's really in reality not. So I'm really excited to see this. I'm really excited to see. I also can't believe that he decided to come here at his age and playing what he's been playing the last seasons. So I'm super excited to see that happening. And it's someone who decided to come to Vasco, not for money reasons, because he wanted to try something different. But he also mentioned in his press conference that he identifies very strongly with Vasco's fight against racism in Brazil. So very, very curious to see what's going to happen from now on with Vasco. I don't know if you guys watched the game today. It was really special.
Yeah.
Packed stadium. They just won based off you guys saw it. It was really cool to see. So exciting for what's to come at Vasco, and it's good. I'm one of those people that I like to see Vasco do well, unlike others, because I think it adds a lot to the Brazilian league.
Yeah. I don't like seeing Vasco go down, but I don't want them to be too competitive either, because their fans do tend to get really, really, really annoying when they do. But just I want to throw it back to Johnny, but just very quickly. Yes, I actually watched most of that game too, and it was special. But as a Fluminense fan that's going to be playing in that same stadium, that same pitch on Thursday, I was not happy watching what I was watching. Looking at what I was like,
they did it on purpose too. They knew it. Their fans were celebrating the win and that they ruined the pitch for Fluminense on Thursday.
Absolutely. Like Fluminense's playing style is going to get screwed by that pitch, and like that could hurt us a lot, because in Paraguay I just don't feel confident. So not happy, and I do agree that they did it on purpose. But I want to ask you before I go to Johnny, because you very confidently said that you think he's top 3 right now in Brazil, like without setting foot in the pitch. Who are the other two?
Who are the other two? I think Hulk and Veiga.
Hulk and Veiga. All right. That's fair. Not gonna argue with you there. Johnny boy, do you agree with everything he said?
I in part agree, in part disagree. So actually, me and Mateo have this discussion almost every day at almost every signing in Brazil. I automatically distrust any player that comes from outside of Brazil at the age of 34, 35, 36. Because I feel like a lot of these players come to Brazil, like Suárez, admittedly so by the man himself, thinking that the level isn't as big as Europe. The fans will adore you because of your name, and you score a goal here, score a goal there, and you become a king. And I think a lot of these players come back and they hit a brick wall when they realize that it's not as easy as they imagine, both in the level of play, but also just natural difficulties that the Brazilian league presents to players concerning the amount of games you play, the distances, the variation in weather. The Brazilian league is tough. It's not for everyone, and it can weigh down a veteran. I feel if they're not prepared for it.
Agree.
And just to show that I'm not biased, I would say the same thing about James Rodriguez. I'm not excited about him at all. I think he makes way too much money. I don't think he's going to perform at that level. But also there's a component there of motivation. And that's where I agree with Mateo, because I also saw his press conference and he seemed very motivated. He didn't give the usual, oh, I'm here because of a new challenge in my career, blah, blah, blah. No, he actually seemed very interested in the club, very interested in the club's history. He actually took the time to learn a lot about it, and he seemed to connect to it. So that shows me that he does have a motivation that goes just beyond the professional. And I think that can make a difference in his stint here in Brazil or there in Brazil.
I think this week was a little bit of a disappointing week for us to find out how bad our level is in Brazil, to be honest. Our best player last year, the best player of the Brazilian Championship, can't find minutes in the Premier League and is loaned to Greece. You know, that speaks volume of the level of our league. And then,
but didn't he have injuries though? Or am I mistaken?
I don't think so.
It's a bit circumstantial because Danilo's a full starter for Nottingham, and like he joined at the same time.
But like literally, the guy who won the prize, the award for best player, and then a guy who hasn't played in Europe in 10 years, or at least the last 5 years, hasn't started for Tottenham in the Premier League, comes in and 2 goals in 3 games and transforms the team completely, like galvanizes the team. Yeah. So it also shows how poor our level is today. No, so
but you can pick examples of players like Lucas that came back to Brazil and were a disaster.
William did better at Fulham than he did at Corinthians.
But William's first 3-4 games, it seemed like he was extraterrestrial from another world. He was playing in a different pace. He was playing a different rhythm. He couldn't carry that on. We're still yet to see if Lucas can carry it on. Still early to tell if it's a success or not. Same with, I guess, Marcelo. Same with, I guess, all of these guys. But I just feel like my point with Payet is the level is not that high. It's very physical. It's very demanding, but the level is not that high. So a guy that's as good as this will definitely make a difference, especially in that position. We have Lobo Benitez making a difference in our league, playing that position. So why not Payet?
Yeah. And to be fair, also, like, if Vasco finishes 14th, like, they're going to build a statue for him. You know what I mean? So it's not like he doesn't have to win every single game from now on. Like, the bar isn't set super high there as well.
No. I just to give in my 2 cents for that one. I feel like they're going to be good and they're going to be okay. They're going to be safe. I feel like 8 rounds to go. Vasco's not going to be fearing relegation too much. Like they might still be in the conversation, but yeah, in about 10 games, I feel like they'll be out of the relegation zone, and they'll be like a few points ahead. And
I think what they noticed that was super important was like their coach, their players were players for the future, coached to be better in the future. They're like, no, we need points now, today. Like Pedro Raul was a guy to develop and sell, right? The Leo, the defender, all these guys were players to develop and Vasco for them to sell for more money. But now they're like, you know what? We're getting 35-year-olds, 36-year-olds. We need to win games, period. So it's a change of mentality because they're desperate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's my truth. I'm sure he's gonna be great. Like I'm sure like he's definitely gonna be the best player at Vasco. I do think he's gonna be one of the best players in Brazil. I'm not too confident in saying that he's gonna be like one of the 3, like 5 best players because like when it comes to international players, it's a little uncertain. I know it feels like he's very like he's hyped, but I don't know. Like I feel like Lucas Moura is gonna kill it at São Paulo. I feel like he identifies with the club so much. I feel like he's gonna do really, really well. There's always some really talented young players as well when Payet is obviously on the down, right? Like on a downward curve. These guys are learning. So I don't know about top three, but I'm sure he's going to make a difference, and Vaish was definitely going to be okay. Let's just like since we started talking about these guys already, why don't we just like we've already mentioned Hulk clearly, as we've mentioned, he's one of the best players in Brazil, has been for a while. Killer, absolute killer ever since he joined Atletico. Didn't have too many very successful seasons, but generally best player on the team, right? No one disagrees with that. And what about the other ones? How do you guys feel about David Luiz at Flamengo? That's an interesting one because most of our viewers are from English football, so that's a name that's very familiar to them.
To me, average. I mean, he's not playing to the level that people would expect from someone who's played in top teams in Europe or in the Brazilian national team for as long as he did. He definitely has. You can see on the touch on the ball that he's different, but for every 60-yard pass that he makes that lands perfectly on the defender's foot, there's a ball that, goes behind his back and the other team scores. So to me, it averages out to an average defender. If he went to a lot of other teams, I don't know if he would start. Like,
I agree.
If you take away his name.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's my impression.
Do you agree, Matteo?
Yeah, I think it's been a mixed bag with him at Flamengo, but that's kind of been his MO throughout his career. You have 5, he'll do 5 world-class games, and then he'll put 5 stinkers. And I think that is a little bit what has happened with him in Flamengo. A lot, really, also at Flamengo, so many different coaches, so many different ways of playing, so many ways of the defensive that operates. They've played with line of 3, line of 4, 5. They've played with David Luiz, being the guy that carries the ball to start the plays. They've started with him playing, more up top to close gaps. So it's been definitely a whirlwind for him. But I agree. I think at the end it's been average. And there's an argument that John and I have all the time, which he says is, I'll never give that much money to a defender, to someone who doesn't score goals. And I think that theory with this player specifically is 100% proven. I don't think he's given the return on investment that they've liked, especially for such a star-studded team.
Yeah, I agree. I was very happy to see him go when he left Arsenal. And but I generally, I really thought he was going to kill it at Flamengo. I thought he was going to be one of the best defenders in the league, and I don't think he ever was. I'm pretty like I think most people don't consider him like top 10 center backs in Brazil. Like honestly, like he's not even a full starter at Flamengo, right? Like it's debatable. So well, other than that, you want to talk about Lucas Moura and James, my man? I'll preview. Like Lucas Moura has been really good. Like he had somewhat of a brain fart in the first game, but he was playing well before that, and it's been phenomenal, right? James, on the other hand. Go ahead.
Yeah. They both only played. Lucas only played 3 games. James 2, so there isn't too much to say. Lucas hit the ground running. He was definitely physically more prepared. He had been on break for less time. Yeah, the first game, it's funny because like if you just watch the highlights, all you see is he had a really good shot on a free kick, and then he commits a penalty, and the other team goes up 2-0. But if you actually watch the game, from the moment he gets subbed in, he was the best player on the field.
He was.
And then against Flamengo away, also best player for São Paulo, scores a goal. And against Corinthians, I mean, yeah, it was incredible. It was maybe one of his best performances for São Paulo, even considering the first time around. So there's reason for São Paulo fans to be excited about him, especially because he has a short contract. It only goes until December. There's a possibility that he signs an extension after that, but as of now, it's just a 4-month contract, and in December he's gone, which is even more reason to believe that he's going to give it his all in these games that are left. James is just completely out of shape. Completely out of shape. He played 15 minutes against Flamengo. He played 45 minutes yesterday, and that's it. And both times, you kind of like I said about David Luiz, you can tell that the touch on the ball is different. But as of now, like, man, after 5, 10, 15 minutes, he's already walking on the field. So it's just a matter of him getting back in shape for us to have a better idea of how useful he can be. But definitely the expectation is there. The salary that they're giving him is there to be the star of the team. So we'll see what happens. But I think it's more of a project, the quote unquote, a project for next year.
Okay, that makes sense. Right. Well, to get to I feel like probably the two biggest names in this list, right? Like the two biggest legends of the game, internationally speaking, in Marcelo and Suarez. I loved that Marcelo joined. I think he didn't realize he was going to be playing against America, against Goiás in the Copa do Brasil. I feel like he felt he was going to be playing like the most important games in general, and you can clearly see that he's physically not up for it. But like when he plays, even chubby, like he's chubby right now for a footballer, but he's still so good. Like on the
So good.
ball,
So good.
like
So
his
good.
skills, like to play that
So
more
good.
like that left back that goes in, becomes a midfielder. Like the goal he scored against Flamengo, he was playing from the right wing more or less. Like it's
It
just
was already worth
ridiculous.
just for that. Just for
Yeah,
that was already worth. Already worth
yeah,
him coming back. Just like Lucas, already worth coming back just for that goal. Just for the
yeah.
handball goal against Corinthians. That's it. Already worth coming back.
It's he's
Goal.
just like when it comes to ability, it's just ridiculous how above everyone else he is. Like it's Marcelo's definitely like he it's tough to say he's the best. Like he's the most victorious left back of all time. I think like stats wise. I think you could say that he's the most skillful left back of all time as well. Like the biggest magician in left back as well. Right. But yeah, just good to see him. What about Suarez, guys? What about him?
I think it's a very complicated situation with him where ultimately he hasn't been able to perform
Yeah.
in key moments, but also physically you can see that he's suffering. Like you can literally see when he plays like how stiff he looks. I
Yeah.
think what kind of summarizes it for me are the two semifinals against Flamengo where he tried and tried and tried and tried and got himself in good positions, but he just couldn't. He just couldn't execute. If it were Suarez of the old days, Grêmio was going to be up 2-3-0 that first game at home, and it would have been another conversation. But he couldn't give a pass. He couldn't give a shot. He was just struggling. So I also think that, and this one hurts me to admit, but I think that for now, Suarez has not have had a good stint at Brazilian football. He's delivered very little for what he makes and for what he promised and for what you expect a number 9 of that caliber to deliver. So I think it's what John said. He never realized how difficult it was physically, how difficult it is to on Wednesday play a game where it's 20 degrees Fahrenheit and then have a transcontinental 6-hour trip and play up north where it's 100 degrees Fahrenheit in the same week. So, and I really do think, like we touched a little bit upon it in the last episode, but I do think that it's pretty much all said and done for him to come to Inter Miami in January. That's the only reason why he played against Flamengo. I think he'll suffer here too. Like he'll suffer in the US too. Like, so it's almost sad to see his decline, and I kind of, I guess, wished for something different.
Right. Do you agree with everything, Johnny?
Yeah, I do agree. It's unfortunate. There were even talks about him retiring in June. Like very strong talks, like strong rumors that he took a long time to deny. And then transfer.
He never talked, right? So it also kind of, he still hasn't talked. So it's crazy.
yeah. We only know he's staying because the transfer window closed. But yeah, we know his knee hurts. That he has admitted that every game he goes on the field in pain, and it's noticeable. And he has the highest salary in Brazil by a lot. And I don't know. It's important to remember that Grêmio also last season was playing in the second division. So if they finished top 6, that's big. That's big for them.
Agree.
Even though the investment was also to finish in those top positions, it's still a big deal. It's never easy coming back to the first division and going straight to the top of the table.
And hitting a semifinal of the cup, which is good money financially, is also impressive.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we'll see. I'm curious to see what Grêmio is going to do next year without him, because I doubt that they're going to make an investment of that impact. Hopefully they make a more balanced roster and allocate that money a little better within their roster. But like Mateo said, yeah, it's just sad to see Suárez end his career the way it is right now.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, in the comments, this guy, it's okay, my man. So sorry I couldn't join you guys today. Hopefully soon. Glorious Botafogo fan. He does content in English. Really
Awesome.
cool, by the way. Yeah, man. He almost joined us today, but he did throw in a comment here that I think we're gonna be agreeing with mostly. When it comes to name alone, Marcelo, Suárez, James, Payet, Diego Costa are all up there. Overall, the best 2 players of the entire tournament right now are Chiquinho Suárez and Lucas Perry. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I don't know if we can talk about Chiquinho at the end of the year, just because he will only have played half of the games. But as of now, definitely. And Pehi, yeah, definitely. If you don't consider him the best goalie in the tournament, he's number 2, number 3 at worst. So, yeah, I don't know. I think there are other players that you can throw in that conversation, but yeah, definitely 2 big names.
I personally have been. No, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just feel like first, crap. Like just the first half of the season, you gotta say that the best player of the competition was Chiquinho. Yeah, he's probably not gonna be playing a lot of games from now on, but it was him. Like he was the biggest difference maker. It seemed that they're gonna be fine without him, but he was still like he's at 13 goals. I think the guys with the most after him is like 10 or 9, right? Like he's missed a couple of games already. Like Chiquinho was just doing so well.
Goals plus assists, it was like 1 per game, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. It's crazy. He's been so good. Okay, we're gonna have to like rapidly go through the rest of the topics. This one, like we're gonna focus solely on Mateo here because he's a Palmeiras fan. You look at it, they're in second. They're favorites to win the Libertadores. Palmeiras is not having a bad season, no, whatsoever. But they've been so successful that you could argue, right, that this is like the most challenging season for Abel Ferreira right now. A lot of complaints from the fan base that they didn't invest in new players as much as they should have. You did have a good, like, I don't remember how many games it was, but a good like 6 or 7 game spell that you were doing like poorly, that you were having a hard time winning games. What are your thoughts on this topic?
I think Palmeiras fans are very spoiled nowadays.
Yeah.
I think it was just a small bump in the road and was severely overreacted because of the situation with the signings, right? Now, to answer the question, is it the most challenging season yet? I think so. Why? Because it's the first season where you need to defend the league title. And in my opinion, that's the toughest title to defend, right? Especially if you decide that your team is going to be composed 70% of youth products. So I think it's a mixture of things. It's a mixture of poor communication, not communicating to the fan base that, look, this is our plan. This is what we're doing. Deal with it. right? And I think coaching staff and the higher ups at Palmeiras have done a very poor job to communicate that going forward. That's one thing. The second thing is we've hit a wall through São Paulo, and São Paulo has eliminated Palmeiras out of the cup twice, and because of that, we've been able to compete on other fronts. Because I don't remember one team that in Brazil who has competed for all 3 championships until the end. It happened with Atlético Mineiro in 2020, maybe Palmeiras in 2018 for a little bit until they got knocked out of the cup and the Libertadores in the semifinals. But
I think Flamengo fans will tell you that they did compete like 2 or 3 seasons probably, but I wouldn't agree with that.
But that year they got eliminated pretty early in the cup by Atlético Paranaense. You remember?
Yeah.
So I think this is the most difficult season for Abel. I think it's the most difficult season for Palmeiras fans to admit that this is the way forward. This is the decisions that we've made. Where we have to see how far it gets us, and it might not come into another major title this year. And as a fan, I'm totally fine with that. We already had 2 magical nights this year where we celebrated trophies. I'm fine with that. Did I expect more? Yes, I expected more. But I'm very proud of the product on the field. I'm very proud to see a team that seldom finishes with 7, 8, 9 guys from the youth system. And it's a youth system that has made the last 8 national finals in all age groups. The last 8 national finals in all age groups, U13, U15, U17, U20. Every age group, they're winning things. So it's good to see that progression. It's good to see players moving into the starting lineup. Would I like 2 more players? Would I like a number 5 and maybe a left back? Yes, I'd love that. But they're not coming. We're going with who's here. Let's see how far this team can go. And like you said, Charlie, it's a good season. It's a good season. I think Palmeiras is only 3 points behind of their points tally of last year, which is crazy to think. But that speaks volumes of how well Botafogo is doing. In the cup, we got eliminated this year by São Paulo, who fully deserved it. And now we have a pretty interesting way in the Libertadores. So let's see how far that goes. We have Pereira next in Colombia. Let's see.
Yeah. By the way, just quick translation for all you guys Premier League watchers like watching us right now. What he meant by number 5 was number 6 to you guys.
Yeah.
Right? Like we say number 5. But yeah, by the way, like I forgot to mention this, but Botafogo broke the record. Like no team at this point has scored this many points in the league era in Brazil. They're breaking pretty much every record. Okay. Well, another big topic. Like I don't know if any of you, I know a couple years back this was somewhat more common than it is now. Nowadays, like people thought it couldn't be done. It was a video game move. But Brazil thought otherwise, because the Fluminense manager, Fernando Diniz, is also the manager in the Seleção. And Fluminense actually were doing horrible when he was announced, and we started doing a little less bad ever since he took over. It hasn't taken its toll on us yet. I think it will at some point. But what are your thoughts on that? Like, is that not crazy? Like, it feels like FIFA to me.
Yeah, it's weird, especially to think that in theory, in 10 months, he's out and Carlo Ancelotti is going to take over. Or at least that's the plan. Yeah. At least that's the plan. That's what they tell us. So yeah, it's weird. It's interesting to see. The big worry was what players is he going to call and who is he not going to call, because he seemed to be in a position where he can't win, where if he calls Fluminense players, they're going to be like, oh, he only called them because he coaches them. And if he calls players from other rivals, they're going to be like, oh, he only called them so those players can get tired and miss matches for their club, and that'll help Fluminense. So it seemed like
he put himself. I was a bit disappointed with his list. I don't know about you. I was a bit disappointed with his list. I expected more changes. Yeah.
It seemed it was very standard. I think any coach, you pick any coach would have picked more or less those players, and they literally chose them to be different. So that was a little disappointing. But as far as the controversy of like, oh, why did he call this guy, not that guy, and like conspiracy theory type stuff, I don't think there was anything that was too suspect. The Fluminense players that he called had already been called before him. The Flamengo players, for example, that he didn't call actually aren't doing as well as they have in the past.
No.
So everything kind of made sense in that front.
And you know what else makes
I expected
sense
more of a
and
revolution.
continues? You know what else makes sense and continues, and the reason why this revolution hasn't happened? Out of the players called, 7 are from Giuliano Bertolucci, which is also Diniz's agent, which is also Chichi's agent. So there's a reason why we haven't seen. That's why Ibanez was. Go look who Ibanez is represented by.
Yeah.
And then Anthony, who's represented by, and then you'll start seeing a pattern. So it was disappointed for me for a lot for those reasons. But philosophically, I'm ecstatic and I'm excited about the national team for the first time in maybe 10 years.
I agree. I agree with that.
But I'm curious to see if. Sorry, finish.
No, go ahead. No, because I love to see Diniz, and I would love to have him, but not on my team. So now we have him in Brazil national team. I'm fine with that. You know.
Yeah, I get that.
I agree 100%. The point that I was going to bring up is I'm curious to see if he's going to be able to implement that style of game, only seeing the players for 10 days every 4 months.
If he can't, it would be absurd. Like, if he can't implement his style. He's done this in, like, the lowest levels, now with the best players in the country. If he can't implement it, it's insane.
Yeah, but
I remember
the
distinctly,
factor
like,
is time, though, I feel.
Yeah, training time.
But I remember, and Charlie can speak about this, like, distinctly when he started in Fluminense, he started, like, in 5 days later, the team was playing different already.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And the thing is, when he does that in Brazil, it tends not to work at first, right? Because you're talking about players at a certain level. When you go to the Seleção, you're talking about intelligent players at a good level. So it could work out. It could confuse the hell out of some international managers, like seeing the Seleção.
Are you guys prepared for Bolivia to beat Brazil 2-0 in Brazil? After Brazil having
98% possession.
90%, 100 shots on target, 2-0 Bolivia.
I gotta say, like, by the way, guys, mainly Maddie, but I'll apologize to everyone. We're probably gonna have a long show, but it's gonna be a long time before we get back to Brasileirão. So it's just better for everyone if we just say like everything we need to say. We teach everything we need to teach, have the discussions, because it'll be a long time. So I apologize for the long show already, because we're gonna be here for another like at least 30 minutes or so. But yeah, I disagreed with the Neymar being called up, but then again, it's Neymar, so it's very unlikely that a manager wouldn't call him up. Ibanez I disagreed with because I just feel like if you're planning for the future, someone that just went to Saudi, and you do have a lot of good center backs at his level, right? Like young center backs coming from Brazil. Eder Militão did just get injured. I'm sure he would have been there, maybe in his place. But yeah, I liked seeing Caio Henrique. I was surprised he wasn't called up before because he's been playing really well in Monaco. I know there's some bias in what I say as well, but he's been really, really, really good. He's like I think he's the first set piece taker at Monaco. I think he's got some solid numbers. He's been a full starter, and left back is a position that Brazil's been poor at since Marcelo dropped. So I'm surprised it took him so long to, and I think he's going to be the starter at left back. So I'm excited to see that because Diniz actually turned him into the left back he is. He wasn't a left back before. So I'm excited for that one.
Brazil's back four for me is the biggest question mark going forward. Aside from Militão, who I think could be there either as a central defender or a right back, easy for the next 2 cycles at least. Everyone else, I have no idea what that's back four is going to look like in the next World Cup, for example.
But I think any country that more or less at the same period lose Thiago Silva, Marcelo, and Dani Alves would suffer, right? Like you're talking about 3 players that are some of the best players in their position, like ever.
It's a fair dilemma to find yourself in. But I'm just curious to see. I don't know what the answer is specifically. So I actually think it's fair to try guys like Ibanez I'm actually a fan of his. I know moving to Saudi
I
Arabia
am too. Yeah.
isn't the best move, maybe, but I'm a fan of him. He's definitely not a bad defender.
I think it's GMAC time. Gabriel Magalhães. I think he's gonna
Also,
start to get some
also
he's gonna start
definitely
to get some minutes. Yeah.
100%.
Right. Do you guys have anything more to say on the Diniz front? We only have one more topic before we go to the scouting portion of the show.
I think we can move forward.
All
All
right,
good.
awesome. So the last thing, this is another one that I have to like. You did see Flamengo in third. They're also in the final of the Copa do Brasil. But let me just quickly summarize the semester they've had so far. Right? They started with a manager that they stole from Corinthians. He like made some stuff up to be able to join Flamengo. It was really weird. He did well with Corinthians last season. Did not work out. Flamengo was at the Club World Cup. They got eliminated early. Didn't face the European team. They lost the State League to Fluminense. They started poorly in the Libertadores and in the Brasileirão. Now they're also eliminated from the Libertadores by a team that I don't know. I feel like the wage of that entire Olympia side is probably like Gabriel Barbosa and Arrascaeta together, and that's it, more or less. So it's just like they were huge underdogs. They eliminated Flamengo, and they like just recently in the last like month and a half or so, there have been two punches. Two teammates getting into a fight where Gerson, who's also quite famous, he played for Marseille not too long ago, punched a Chilean international, right? And you also had one of the managers who's obviously not there anymore. He punched Pedro after a game. So things are not looking too good at Flamengo, and you can see that I hate it, but they're still competitive, but they should be like they're the most expensive squad in South America by miles and miles and miles. So it's hugely disappointing. Like, what's your take on Flamengo, man? Like, how do you fix the situation like semi quickly at Flamengo?
I think there's a leadership lack of leadership, and I think that there's no one who's really, making people accountable. Because I think Flamengo has been many, many years of players not being accountable of what they're doing.
Yeah.
And one of the discussions that came these last 2 weeks that I can't agree more is the importance of Diego Ribas, how important he was for Flamengo these last couple of years. And there's this video that started circulating again on the internet that I hadn't seen from back then, which is Flamengo. I think they're playing Vasco. They're up 2-0. Gabigol scored 2 goals, and he's like, in halftime, he's talking about where we're going to go have a party because I just scored 2 goals. And Diego goes crazy on him, like, what the F are you saying? The game's not done. Go run more. You're not running for anything. Go score 800 more goals. I'm going to give you the ball and you're going to score 800 goals. And it just showed you in one little interaction what Flamengo is and how that player was important, even though we didn't understand why he kept renewing, why he kept playing some minutes. I think today it's clear how important he was for that team. And then on top of, I'm not saying this is happening because Diego's not there, but also they don't know what they want, right? They don't know what they want in terms of coaching. They don't know what they want in terms of players. And they're just throwing money at problems. And it has been working for the longest time. But that's my take on it. I think Sampaoli is a dead man walking. I think it surprises a total of 0 people that Sampaoli has problems with the dressing room. And I think personally it's a matter of time that they turn back either to Rogério Ceni again, or they put a crazy offer on Dorival's hand again and see what happens. I think that's the way forward here. But for now, they're going to concentrate on keeping a top 4 in the Brazilian Championship, playing well, and then preparing for the Brazilian Cup final, which is the last final that they have, because you said they lost so many. I think it's 6 or 7 finals or games that they played for trophies that they lost.
No, yeah, things are bad, and like Flamengo are lucky they're like economically, right? Like financially, they're really well run, and they sell really well. They usually sell players for more than what they're worth. The other side of the spectrum to Fluminense generally, but they're standing to lose a lot of money on a lot of people this season. Like I thought they were gonna fire Gerson. I really did. Like for a second there, I was like, yeah, he just punched a teammate. They're gonna cancel his contract, right? They're
No,
gonna
they both
face no
started.
issues. What?
They both started the next day.
Yeah, they both started exactly the very next game. I thought they were gonna release Pedro as well. Like it doesn't feel like he has like there's no climate for him in
Yeah, I
there
think
anymore.
eventually he's gone.
Yeah, and that's another extremely expensive player, like one of the most expensive signings of all time in Brazil. Gerson too, the two of them, and a couple of other really expensive players that I think they'll have lost money on. And the other thing, and Flamengo has spent like hundreds of millions in manager fines already, in firing managers, and it looks like Sampaoli is another one too that's going to be on that boat. Johnny, what's up? What's up at Flamengo? Like, do you,
I agree with everything that Mateo said. The problem is definitely in the command of the team, in
Yeah.
the locker room, and in the back office. And I don't know. I don't know if there's an immediate solution to this. I don't know if firing the coach and getting a new one right now would help. I think long term they need to redo their roster almost completely. There's players that have been there since 2019, and they're only there based on their name and on their history, but they haven't been doing well for 2 or 3 years. And there's also everything Mateo said. I really agree. The players think they own the club. They know that nothing's going to happen to them. Gerson punched the teammate and started the next game. So what signal does that send to him and to his teammates that they're untouchable? You know, that there's no line that can be crossed that's too far. So I think they're going to try to wing it until the end of the year, try to win the Brazilian Cup, like you said, finish top 4 to make it to the group stage of the Libertadores, and then think about a deeper change next year. But now we're already in September. So I think it's too late for this year. But the transfer window already closed. So it kind of is what it is. Now they just got to sort of damage control all the way to December, and then see what happens, and then take that drastic decisions then.
right?
Which it's funny enough because they took a drastic decision this year, firing a coach that was doing fine, right?
Yeah.
So someone that they thought was going to do better, and then they haven't won anything. So yeah.
They fired the manager that won the Libertadores, guys.
Yeah,
So,
it was doing more than fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
And who
Absolutely.
had the personality that I think you need with a roster like that that's full of egos.
Agree.
Instead, they threw a guy there that has an even bigger ego than all those players. Literally throwing fire on gunpowder. Like, it's crazy.
All right, guys. So just very quickly, we're gonna get to the scouting portion of the show now. I'm excited for that. Just very quickly on the poll, I haven't asked you guys, by the way. I want to ask you very quickly on the poll right now. 11 votes. Marnelli's at 45%, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, 45. Bruno Guimarães and Paquetá are at 27, and Anthony is at 0. I voted on the poll. I voted for Martinelli. There's probably some bias in there, even though I do feel like he's got a huge, very high ceiling. But if I'm being just on the football side, maybe Bruno Guimarães would have been the safer bet. Do you guys want to venture? Do you guys want to say a name in there, like out of Anthony, Bruno Guimarães, Paquetá, and Martinelli, who's going to end up having the better career in England?
I like Guimarães a lot.
Me too.
I like him a lot. I feel like he's one of those players who can control a midfield and give rhythm to a team. And I think that goes a long way when speaking of longevity in a career.
Yeah.
So if I were to bet, I think he's more consistent than Paquetá. Paquetá, I think, can be more brilliant at times, but it also has lower lows.
And there's also a
and
chance he's
Martinez,
going to be suffering a ban soon, right?
yeah, he's being investigated, yeah.
Yeah.
And Martinelli, I don't know. It's always tough to say with strikers because strikers live from goals, so it's tough to say. If I were to bet my money now, this far early in their careers, I would say Guimarães.
Right, Mateo.
I agree. I think he's made for English football.
Yeah. I think he's made for football. I was pissed when he went to Newcastle.
Disappointing.
Like, I'm a huge fan of his.
Disappointed on him about in the World Cup. Feel like fell short. He had an opportunity to be that player that we needed and wasn't. So I'll always have a little bit of doubt in the big stages as well, because playing for Newcastle is one thing, but then putting those 5 stars on your chest, I still think it's means a lot, and that shirt is hard to carry.
Yeah, it's heavy. It's a heavy kit to wear, right? Well, before we get to the scouting portion, again, I have both of them here with me. We're gonna have a few words from our sponsors, our official sponsors at Golasso Kits. Johnny, take it away.
Yeah. First of all, we're honored to sponsor this podcast. We love participating. Me and Mateo own this online vintage soccer store, golassokits.com, as you can see below. We have jerseys from all over the world, from second division in Congo to Guatemala to Brazil as well. All the jerseys are 100% authentic and original. We ship worldwide, doesn't matter where you are. And the prices you're seeing on the screen are actually in Brazilian reais, because that's where Charlie is. Those are not in US dollars. You can divide those numbers by 5. We try to be as competitive as we can with our prices, as fair as we possibly can. So take a look. We have over 5,000 items. There's something there for everyone, guaranteed. And also, if you'd like, also follow us on Instagram at Golasso Kits, the way it's spelled right there, like our website. We also post some cool content and keep you guys updated on our new arrivals.
All right, awesome. And sorry, let me put this on the screen.
Correct. Yeah. Promo code F.I.T.A, BR, just like that, all caps, all together. You get 15% off your order. Take advantage. This promo code will expire before our next episode. So check it out, especially if you're not in the US. It's a good way to make up for the shipping cost.
Awesome. Just by the way, since it was on the first page, I just want to say this here, I think, okay, it's not showing up for me yet here. This is my favorite alternate kit ever for Fluminense. I have one myself. It's it's one of my favorite kits ever.
Beautiful.
Right. Do you take advantage, guys? Amazing store.
Beautiful jersey.
Yeah. No, it's a crazy kit. I have it with Fred on the back. It's one of my favorite jerseys. Absolutely. And
that one actually has the number 9 on the back. Unfortunately, no number, but it does have the number 9 on the back. Awesome.
Okay, guys, we go to the more, and thank you guys once again for this partnership. Anthony's really happy that Bahia won 4-0. Anthony's a Bahia fan from Bristol, which is the coolest thing ever. Okay, so we're gonna get to the most ambitious part of the show now, where we have 9 players here. Coincidentally, 6 of them are left-footed. Only 20% of footballers are left-footed, but we selected a bunch of them to talk to you guys. These aren't predictions. These aren't rumors. We're not linking them to anyone, and we're no way, shape, or form talking about the 9 best young players in Brazil, right? We can do another show for the Brasileirão in 4 months, in 3 months, and we can have like 9 totally different names for you, and they're going to be just as good. I'm not going to be talking about André. who's the most obvious one for me, a Fluminense fan. We're not going to be talking about Vitor Roque, who already left for Barcelona. Well, not already, but already sold, like Endrick as well. There's a lot to pick from. These are just some names that we think could do well in the Prem or in Europe. Yeah, I'm excited, guys. If any of you watching, if Glorious Botafogo, you're still watching right now, I'm sure you have some names that you think could do well for Palace or for some other English teams. Okay, let's start with, who did I say was going to be the first one here? We're going to start with a young left-footed defender who plays for São Paulo, mainly as a center back, Lucas Beraldo. Please disregard the the evaluation, right? Like we've all been told multiple times that this is a guess that they take. But other than that, the info should be correct. That's why I used it. You can see his height in here. He's 19 years old. Johnny, talk to me about Beraldo and why you feel like he would be a good player in Europe.
I think he's maybe the most technical center back in Brazil today. We were talking about how David Luiz can launch the ball 60 yards onto a striker's foot. Beraldo does the same. He can turn the game from the left to the right, send the ball to the winger on the defender's back. Very, very technical.
Makes such a difference today, have a defender like that.
Yeah, because you don't have to take that extra step of like passing the defender finds the midfielder, and midfielder starts to play. The play starts with him, which is incredible. And that doesn't take away from also his defensive qualities. He's tall, great positioning. Maybe he lacks a little bit of physical strength, but he's only 19 years old. And that's actually a problem that São Paulo's youth academy in general has. All the players seem to be very, very skinny. But I've never seen such a skillful defender, and very mature, very, very mature for his age. There's players on the bench that have 10 years more experience, and you can't even tell. You can't even tell. And yeah, that transfer valuation right there, even if it were true, São Paulo as an institution decided a couple years back that it wouldn't sell any of its starting young players for less than 10 million euros. That's like the bare minimum to start a conversation. 10 million, and then you'll see. So that's a big name. There's two names in São Paulo right now that the club is doing everything in their power to try to extend their stay in Brazil as long as possible. It's inevitable that he goes to Europe, and he's one of them.
All right. Awesome. We're having this conversation because we're going to be trying to place these players in just to contextualize you guys a little bit so that you understand the level we're talking about. Johnny, like, the Premier League is one of the leagues that he follows the least, surprisingly, because he follows a lot of leagues, guys. So he doesn't have time to watch every single one. But just
anyone who needs a technical, young, left-footed defender, I highly recommend. Just for style, I actually think he would be perfect in the Italian league, because he's more technical than physical, generally speaking. But again, he's 19 years old. So just like Ronaldinho when he left Brazil was this thin, and then he became a tank. And Neymar as well. So the same could happen to him. So yeah, maybe you could help me in placing him in a specific club, but definitely top class.
I don't know too much about him. When I saw him, I was very impressed. I agree, he's very technical, mainly for his age. It's kind of ridiculous. Well, Matteo can probably help me out in here because he follows the Prem a little bit too. But just from the fact that West Ham couldn't get Maguire for 30 million, I'm thinking they'd be smart to invest like 20 on Beraldo, which I think would be a value that would make São Paulo think about it. So that's a team right there.
Beraldo screams Brighton for me.
I was avoiding Brighton because that's the main team that I'm going to be talking about. But I agree. Brighton, he's very technical. For De Zerbi, he could be amazing.
Buy for 12, 15, sell for 65, 70 to like Chelsea or Man United in 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds good. All right, let's jump to the next one. Who is we're gonna be talking about Mauricio now. If you want to start talking about him, Mateo, because sometimes it takes me a while here to pull
Yeah,
up.
Mauricio is a young creative player from Internacional. He's very technical, and I think he's one of the brightest midfielders that we have playing in the tournament. Kind of a breakthrough prospect, at least. He came from Cruzeiro, but now plays for Internacional, and has really been making an impact in a team that I feel like is very, very technical. Has
Yeah,
a very experienced and a team that likes to have the ball, but has a very experienced midfielder. Has players who have played, you know, hundreds and hundreds of games in first division. So I think he's slotted in very well in that Inter team. It's funny because they almost it's kind of that analogy where people who bet on things, they're one bet away from the big hit. Mauricio was about to leave Internacional for peanuts. One good game, two good games, three good games. Now he's one of their key players.
yeah,
So this is a guy that you could see easily in a European team soon. He's 22, a little bit older, but I
yeah.
think he's already mature and ready to play to take that step.
Awesome. Yeah, mean left foot, by the way. You watch his highlights, you have some killer goals. That's something that you'll see with a couple of the players that we're going to be talking about, but he's probably the main one right now, like with a killer left foot. Do you think you could place him like at a team? Do you see a team where he could work out?
I think a Luton Town player.
All right, yeah. So probably a star for someone who's like desperate to try to hopefully avoid relegation. Okay, fair enough. So the next one is actually one of my players, and guys, I couldn't avoid that. I I thought about trying to go away from Fluminense, but I would have to study so much more because I know the Fluminense players so well. So what I'm gonna do is I'm not gonna say all of them should go to Arsenal. I feel like that's original enough, and I'm not gonna talk about Andre because I talk about him every day of my life. I think about him every second of my life.
As you
uh,
should.
yeah, that's freaking phenomenal, guys. Like, if we do another one of this, I'll probably talk about him because he's by far the best player coming from Fluminense.
And
Maybe after Marcelo.
this is really hard to do. Like there's phenomenal players that have played in Brazil that just don't work out in England.
Yeah,
For I think one of the most iconic like flops in England is Hockey Junior, which is like in
yeah,
everyone's top 10 list of best defenders to ever play in Brazil.
yeah,
Palmeiras idol, like won the World Cup with Brazil, just didn't work out at Leeds.
yeah. No, yeah. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of them. There's a couple of surprises as well. You don't expect them to do too well. No one expected Richarlison to be a main man in England. How he's been before joining Spurs. Like there's some surprises, but yeah. But this is Alexander, by the way. I'm not gonna talk about Andre, but I'm gonna talk about his main partner, right? And Alexander is 19. He's left-footed as well. He's mainly a DM or a CM, but he's played more games for Fluminense as a left back because we've been struggling with this position before Marcelo joined, and even with Marcelo and his injuries, like he's played there every now and then. But mainly this season, like it's just amazing how fast he was crucial for the team. Like when he got injured, it's comparable. And I'm sorry I keep making these comparisons, but when he got injured, it's very comparable to Saliba getting injured at Arsenal. Like it was the beginning of the end. Because Arsenal could never recover. Then again, Rob Holding was his replacement. And Alexander was so crucial playing alongside Marcelo. He's very smart. He's very bold. Like he's not afraid to take a shot. I feel like he doesn't have too many games. Like he still has a lot to improve, and I can already see him being very useful in a team like the team you just mentioned, a Brighton. I feel like he can. We're not talking at exactly the same level quite yet, of course, but I feel like he would be a fair shout to try to replicate more or less what Caicedo does, but on a left-footed player. He's someone that can play usually on the midfield. He's gonna play really well with the with the fullback. He's gonna it's gonna help him out defensively and offensively. He can also support the left winger very well, and he can play as a left back very, very well. Like he's not gonna be perfect as a left back. He's not gonna be very exciting, but mainly if you're wanting that inverted fullback style that a lot of the top managers are looking for nowadays, I feel like Alexander's likely to fit that criteria very soon. I think it's an exciting player. Do you guys agree with me? Because I'm proud of my analysis here.
Oh, yeah, definitely an exciting midfielder. He's one of the many players that come out of Fluminense's youth academy that are just fun to watch. This is a very good generation that Fluminense has, and he might be the most exciting prospect right now. In like thinking of the fact that he's a couple years younger than Andre, right?
Yeah.
So even more potential.
I think Andre's going to be the better player, but yeah, perhaps. I think he's better than what Andre was doing at his age.
Yeah.
It's just that at 22, Andre's so ready. Like if Andre gets a shot, you're talking about one of the best DMs out there. Like it's the one thing missing from his game. But all right, Matteo, do you have any thoughts on Alexander? Do you agree with what I said?
No, agree with what you guys said. Key piece in the puzzle.
Yeah. I'm so happy. He's coming back from injury now, and Fluminense tends to gain so much from that. So the next player we're going to be talking about is Segovinha, Matias Segovia from Botafogo. Johnny, take it away, my man. I'm going to put him on the screen.
Yeah, young Paraguayan prospect. This is a great example of what we talked about earlier in the episode about Botafogo's scouting, because Paraguay is often talked about having two big clubs, maybe three. He doesn't come from any of those, and yet he's already a fan favorite. Only 20 years old. Doesn't start all the time. Sometimes he comes in better in the second half when the rival is already a little tired. He's one of those wingers that love to dribble, are very fast, kind of like a sneaky little guy on the wing. Not particularly a goal scorer, but someone that messes around with the opposition's defense. So very interesting player, very, very entertaining to watch. The fans absolutely love him. And I think that says a lot for a player that usually comes off the bench. But yeah, just pure South American entertainment quality. Physically kind of short, not very strong, but so skilled. Very, very skilled. Very fun to watch. I would love to have a guy like that in my team.
I agree. It's not every day you see players that are so little do well in the Prem. But there's a good couple of teams in the Prem right now that have very little options when it comes to wingers. Crystal Palace itself was always a team with a lot of speed on the wings. They lost Zaha. Michael Olise is injured right now. They tend to start like senior players like 31, like Townsend, Ayew, these kinds of players. Like not Townsend, sorry, Schlup. Just older players that aren't as fast. So maybe, same owner. That's a team that could make sense, perhaps.
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with Crystal Palace's roster, but just in terms of general tier of team, it sounds about right.
All right. So now we're going to go for Piquerez, arguably the best left back in the league. One of them, definitely. Matteo, what are your thoughts on him?
Piquerez, I think, is already probably sold, to be honest. Is already someone that Palmeiras internally knows that they won't have for next year, likely. The comparison with him is always to Matias Vinha, which was the left back before him, who played in the Premier League last year for 6 months and did fairly well. I think he's better. I think he's more complete. I think he can attack more, defend better, and
he's bigger, right?
Yeah, and honestly, I'm just realizing this, but might be the best or one of the best left backs that I've seen play for Palmeiras in my lifetime. He's just very solid, and was going to be ashamed to see him go. He's 24. He's ready for for the jump. There's been several offers and people wanting to take him out, but Palmeiras has been able to hold him for a little bit longer. Just a very complete left back. I really like and enjoy how he can play when Palmeiras has the ball. He becomes a third defender sometimes. So he can play as a center back in a line of three, which is an important versatility to have if you want to go play in Europe. But he also sometimes they hold the right back and he goes out to attack and they let him to attack. So he's definitely been able to have a good partnership with Dudu on the left. So honestly, one of the most solid players that we have in our championship is Piquerez, and I think I agree with you. I think he's, if not the best, one of the best left backs we have in the country right now.
Yeah, definitely. And this is a position that Brazil has been struggling with, but the world has been struggling with. You don't have a lot of world-class left backs right now.
It's just
so.
it's just a guy that he's reliable. He'll deliver, that 6.5, 7 or up every game consistently. It's hard to think of any mistakes that he has. There is one that comes to mind, but the Flamengo didn't score the goal. The famous ball that Michael has in the Libertadores final, he destroyed Piquerez in that play. But besides that, this guy is bulletproof. Seems like.
How much you guys do you feel like Palmeiras would charge?
We sell really poorly, Charlie. So I think Palmeiras can get 15 million, 12 million, 13 million euros. I think is decent.
He wasn't
cheap.
He wasn't cheap. 25.
He wasn't cheap either. I think he came for like 3 or 4 mil. So
okay, yeah. Can you place him somewhere?
I kind of see him at like a place like Aston Villa, who needs a left back, and he's versatile enough to play in that system. I feel like I can see him in that style of team.
I agree. I think Emery was looking at players that you could see some similarities in style. I think that makes sense. I like that link. All right. Up next we have, is it Marcos Leonardo? Yes. This is actually a player that has been linked with a couple of big teams in England. He's been linked with Arsenal in the past as well. I think this transfer window, it's not going to happen. But this transfer window, you can see, like, by transfer market, the most expensive player on our list, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure I can say it's the one with the highest ceiling, but he is a striker, so that tends to make the player look a little bit more like he tends to become more expensive. But yeah, what about him?
I think this was mine, right, John? It was one of mine. So Marcos Leonardo, a little bit of an obvious-ish one because he's been linked to Roma this window and linked to Chelsea. It's funny to think that Santos already sold the next number 9 already, so they skipped one. So Santos has, I'm not going to remember all of them now, but like a line, almost like a factory line of number 9s that they've produced. And Marcos Leonardo is one more of those. You have the guy that went to Juventus. I forget his name. You have you have Caio Jorge. You have Yuri Alberto. You have Marcos Leonardo now. They sold David Washington, which is the next one, to Chelsea already. So Marcos Leonardo, the only reason why he hasn't been sold is because Santos, as of 2 hours ago, just got out of the relegation zone. But they're fighting for their lives against relegation. And if they lose probably their only source or one of their main source of goals and assists is Marcos Leonardo, they'll do terribly. So that's the only reason why I think the Roma's 20 million euro bid wasn't accepted. He also had, I think he was a top scorer of the U20 World Cup, if I'm not wrong, or had a breakout U20 World Cup. So he's just one of those guys where I think you can put down 20 million and he'll perform, hopefully. But yeah, this one was a little bit more obvious, I guess, but someone you'll definitely see soon. And where I'd see him at at Everton, at West Ham, at someone who needs like a second or third number 9 for him to start getting in rhythm and scoring. I don't know if he'd be able to like come to a big European team, put the shirt on, and like start scoring goals. I think he needs some time to adapt as well.
I fully agree with that. I think he's a great player, but when he was linked to my favorite club, for example, for Arsenal, like I did not understand that. Then again, didn't quite get the Vitello links either. Don't think we're gonna have time to talk about that. But all right, next to this was definitely the most famous one. This is gonna it's arguable. Like he's definitely the least famous in Brazil because he's so young. He's 16, but one of the most promising stars in Brazil. Just like half the Palmeiras, the Palmeiras Academy is. Where is it? Here it is. Estevão.
Yeah, so I picked him, but Mateo can definitely chime in as well. He definitely knows even more than me. But just so you guys have an idea, he's 16 years old. He hasn't played for the professional team yet, but just last year, I think it was last year, PSG made an offer for both Endrick, that was sold to Real Madrid, and him, 80 million euros for both of them. Palmeiras ended up rejecting that offer and obviously did well because ended up getting 70 million just for Endrick alone. And word on the street is that Estevão is even better. He's still obviously super young, hasn't played professional. The jump between U18, well, he plays in the U20 as a 16-year-old, but the jump to a professional is even bigger. So what we're talking about here is just expectation. Like he doesn't even have a transfer price or whatever on transfer market. That's how much of, I don't want to say a mystery, but of an uncertainty he is. But as far as prospects in the youth academies in Brazil, he's definitely number one. I don't think anyone has someone who hasn't played professional yet that has as much of an expectation as Estevão. I don't know, Mateo, if I forgot anything. Maybe
no, I think you covered everything. I think he played a crucial role in Palmeiras' Copinha win this at the beginning of the year when he was 15. So there you could see kind of the glimpses of quality. One comment, like to me, just to close this off, like to me as a Palmeiras fan, my entire life, it's unheard of to see us having this conversation of because Palmeiras has never had a really good youth team. So for this to be, this is one of like 5 or 6 more that I could talk about right now. And this is already like a 3rd or 4th generation since Palmeiras has been using these players. So to me, I would keep an eye moving forward to Palmeiras' youth system because it could very well become like the youth system of the teams that you both support, Fluminense and São Paulo. It could become, I'm talking about 10, 15, 20 years down the line, one of the clubs that most has players in professional. I think we might go through another one here in a bit.
There's one. No. There's no more. No more.
There was the last one.
No. There's the two remaining one are like they're Fluminense players. We've gone through your 6. I think
Cool.
all three of you
No,
guys.
we're good. I just had thought of Vitão, who's another left-footed center back, who was at Shakhtar Donetsk because Palmeiras sold him really young, and he's doing really, really well at Internacional. That's another player that for us to keep an eye on for those who love left-footed central defenders like myself.
Yeah, as I said, like if we do this show again 3 months, like we can say 9 totally different games and players, they're gonna be just as good. Estevão is like he's the most different breed out of these guys because he's not playing professionally yet. But then again, if you were to guess someone's gonna end up at a big team, he's the first guess because he's someone that he could be sold before he's 18, right? Like in the Endrick or the Vitor Roque molds, like more or less. So huge ceiling. I know it's only highlights, right? And we don't like basing anything off highlights, but just like he's shot the ball that way. Like his left foot is just ridiculous. And for someone his age, it seems like it's weirdly strong as well. Like it's weirdly powerful for someone his age and his size. He's 170. He's a tiny kid. Right. Wrapping it up with two very underwhelming players compared to these two. It's just like to save some time backstage, I decided to go with three Fluminense players. They're good players, by the way. I'm not going to talk about any bad players here, but they're not at the level most of these guys are. Starting with Nino. Nino's actually called up for the Seleção. I don't know how many minutes he's gonna get for the next couple of games, but he's there. You can see he's by far the oldest player we mentioned. He's 26. He's the Fluminense captain already. Ever since Fred retired.
I love
Good
him,
leadership,
man.
very calm
I
guy
love
as
him.
well.
I love him. Since Bragantino, I love this guy.
I was talking to my brother. Doesn't like him. We were at Maracanã yesterday to watch the Fluminense game. My brother doesn't rate him too much, and I was thinking, like, I'm not saying best defender in Brazil, right? Because that's definitely Gomes in the last like 3 or 4 years. But best Brazilian defender 3 or 4 years, I feel like the most consistent should probably be Nino. I think it's him. He's consistently been one of the best, and when it comes to like he's one of those players that you look at him and you're like, no way this guy's a footballer. He doesn't look athletic. He looks a little weird. He's not too fast. He's kind of slow when you think about it. But I just feel like, again, a team like Brighton, he would probably be a squad player. I'm not saying he'd be a starter, but he's someone that he's good technically. He's got a good pass. He's good at carrying the ball. He's someone who could easily play the right-sided center back in a back three as well. If he doesn't have too many responsibilities when it comes to recovery, because yes, he'd be slow for the Prem, I feel like he could do a good job. Like he's someone always solid. He's a 7 out of 10 performance every single day. And I feel like if you're not a big club, he's a solid defender to have in your squad. Right? Like,
agreed. And he'll probably leave soon if he continues to be called up to the national team.
Yeah.
I think so too, and it's probably the cheapest player we've mentioned so far. I feel like Fluminense would probably sell him for 10 or maybe less. So
Worth mentioning, he also scores his goals here and there too. He's good on offensively on corners.
Very, very good header. He's a big bloke, very dominant when he goes to attack, and he's not bad with the ball in his feet as well. Not as bad as he looks to be, because he doesn't look like a good footballer. And the last one, I gotta say, like, I know it's not gonna be too exciting, but he's he's my favorite Fluminense player after André, and I think he's absolutely crucial for us. If he got injured, our season would be properly over. For a good period, I feel like he was one of the best wingers one of the best wingers in Brazil. I feel like he still is. He's also 25.
I'm a little bit disappointed you didn't mention the president.
John Kennedy. If we do another one, I'll go with him. Johnny has mentioned him in a similar thing we did a while ago.
I don't think he had even become a professional player, and I was talking about him in this podcast.
Oh, wow.
I love John Kennedy.
Good shout, and someone with a much higher ceiling than John Arias. It's just that you never know with his mentality if John Kennedy's going to be able to like keep being a good dude, because he's sort of like his head's sort of all over the place. So let's hope he keeps this up, because he's a killer. He's a killer in front of goal. He's got loads of potential for an attacker. But yeah, John Arias is just like, he's a little dude, but you don't see him lose the ball. Like the ball glues to his feet. I feel like he's really useful. He's someone who's going to fight for the team as well. Same argument. Like probably a squad player that would be getting an average of 10, 15 minutes per game at a Brighton or something. I could see him being more important at a Fulham or an Everton of sorts. But I just feel like he's very versatile. He plays mostly as a winger, but you could see him becoming a 10 or even an 8, depending on how much you want to attack. Because I feel like he's good overall. He's not overly special taking a shot, dribbling, but he's good in everything he does. And he's at an age where you know what his prime is. Like, you know what you're getting with John Arias. And I feel like it's more or less that price as well. Maybe a little more because he's a full Colombia international by now. But yeah, those are my 2 cents on him. Do you guys agree with me? Do you feel like I overplayed him a little bit here? No.
Um, no, I think it's just interesting to point out how important Fernando Diniz was for his development, because when he left Colombia, it was almost a joke. Like, he was
Yeah.
one of those players that came up, if I'm not mistaken, with Millonarios, and it was just one of those promises from the youth academy that didn't pan out for them, and it was kind of a joke. And then he went to Brazil, and no one really understood why, and now he's a very, very solid player.
Yeah. Yeah, he's definitely like, you take him or Andre out of the team and we're screwed. Like, he's very important. Big fan of his. But yeah, that's all the players we. This has been a really long show. Like, I'm not gonna say too much. I'll just give you guys the solo mode and we can go. But thank you so much. If you're still watching this by now, I haven't said this yet. Please like, share, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Do support these guys. Buy some kits, guys. Buy some kits with 15% off, shipped worldwide. Please do. Okay, guys. Thank you so much once again, Johnny boy. Is there anything else you want to say?
Thanks for watching. I hope everyone enjoyed it. This was a long one, so if you watched the whole thing, very, very, very appreciate it. Thank you very much. Follow our store's Instagram right here at Golazo Kids. Check out our website, F.I.T.A BR, for 15% off your order. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thank you, man. My main man, as always. And Mateo, thank you so much for joining us again, dude.
Thank you.
It's always special. You know so much. You're just one of those football brains I love picking on. So thank you so much.
No, thank you guys for having me and us again. Looking forward to next time to talk about Brazilian football. Always fun.
Awesome. So that was all. That was much more than we had time for, actually, guys. We're going to be talking about the Copa Sudamericana next week. Should make for a good show as well. Happy birthday to Esteban, who wasn't here today because it's his birthday. And yeah, thank you. Sorry for the long show. I'll see you next time. Ciao.
Ciao.
I clicked on the outro, but it didn't.